What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and today I've got Bob Armbrister with me. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
You bet, buddy. Bob has a very interesting career in specifically the software development world, but I want to allow him to kind of make his own introduction here. Talk a little bit about your past businesses you've been involved in and kind of what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Landon. As a kid, I was telling you, mowing lawns, got the entrepreneurial spirit when I was, young, hard work ethic, and got into technology and just, mainly finding ways to just make a side hustle. And I think I read 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh yeah.
When I think I was in college or just graduating. I was already doing kind of technology side hustle stuff. Read that and I was just like, I'm like, this is it. This book was made for me, right? And so tried every single different type of business model known to man, right? iPad apps, SaaS platforms, pay-per-click generating, revenue streams, drop shipping stuff from China. I've tried, everything. Had some success and lots of failures in software and SaaS and startups and raising money and doing all of that. And yeah, now about 5 years ago, started Spark Business Works as a custom software agency for, small, medium-sized, privately owned companies that needs a firm that would make decisions like it was their money. Which, since I've lost plenty of it and made every single mistake in the book, try to bring that to our clients and saying, how can we help you and not take advantage of the situation? And so, trying to do quality work, trying to deliver it on time and being fun to work with. That's kind of the three things we go after.
That's super cool. And you guys are based out of Michigan. Is it currently just freezing cold there right now? It's like 27 degrees in Nebraska today.
Right. Yeah, I have layers on, right?
Gotcha.
It's cold in Michigan when you have layers. So yeah, it's a little warm. We have a team in Houston, and we also have a team in India. So we get to all make jokes about the weather each day, and we're just hoping we only have a few more weeks, hopefully, of winter left here in Michigan. But it can snow in April, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's crazier things have happened. It was like 70 degrees here a few weeks ago, and then we got snow and like 3 days later. So yeah, it's no surprise for that in Nebraska anyway. But so talk a little bit about Spark Business Works, and I'm curious, how have you guys continued to grow that business for the software side?
Yeah, so it's been it's been interesting. We we're not doing the traditional software agency thing, right? Like if you go and, there's some firms around that'll you can pay and do a tour and watch how, two developers sit next to each other and build all this stuff for Fortune 500 companies and at outrageous rates. And I just don't believe in that. We're a lower cost, smaller firm mentality when it comes to a customer base. We try to serve the underserved. I mean, I'm passionate about it. Helping firms that don't have a huge tech staff, don't have a CTO, don't have developers. And so, yeah, so we're a team of, we're close to 50 individuals now. We have team members spread all throughout the U.S. We have offices in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Metro Detroit, Houston, and outside New Delhi in India. And we're just trying to create a company. Our purpose is to create a company that we're all proud of. Like how many people, go home and they complain about their job to their spouse, right? Or this happened at the office. Our purpose is to create something that you're actually proud of, that you want a colleague that to work there or a loved one. You nail that. And I think that makes the work more fun. And that's what we're here. That's what we're doing.
That's cool, man. You've been in, we talked a little bit before this, and you talked about other investments, other businesses you've been a part of. How does that compare and contrast from other businesses that you've been in before?
Yeah, I think early on, I mean, obviously, if anyone's read 4 Hour Work Week or has that kind of itch, you're just focused on like the money side, right? How can I make $1 million? How can I get X amount passive each month, right? You're just focused on that, and like the purpose is missing. Um, so I've had companies like that where it's like, hey, we're going to build this app, and the sole purpose is to just make money. I
Mm,
mean, that's it, right?
yeah.
Where now it's like, you're building, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but you're building a company that's impacting people's lives, right? Like, hey, so and
Yeah.
so just bought a house. Hey, one of our team members just got married or had a kid or lost a loved one and needs a month off to go deal with something. And like, it's just way more fulfilling, from a business standpoint. I think when you start to build something, um, and serve clients like that, where I think early on in my career was more about just, the what society tells entrepreneurs to be about.
Hmm.
You're worrying about the exit. You're worrying about, the vanity stuff, right? Where I don't know if you grow out of it or what, or if you made so many mistakes now you don't care
Yeah.
as much. I mean, I don't know. So that's kind of the difference, I would say, is that, and then it's also the managing your own expectations and not relying on other people's judgment for success, right? I speak at some entrepreneurial startup things each year, and one thing I tell some of the younger people going through those is like, you define your own success. Especially in the Midwest, you're not going to have a multi-million-dollar exit most likely, or you're not going to build something on your own without major support. And so just, what does success look like really, versus what everyone tells you it needs to be. So
Yeah, and different stages of life. I mean, I believe that success looks different to different people, different ages, different phases of life that they're at. And the number one thing that, I've been studying a lot of people in finance and people that are guarding against like getting into the market, stuff like that. And they're very small business, pro small business. And cash flow is the number one thing that they talk about. It's not necessarily like, oh, we need to build up this thing and then exit for, X amount of money. It's way more about creating a cash flow that's able to operate without you at the helm 24/7 all day long. Because at the end of the day, you're going to need to live, and you're going to need to produce something of value in this world if you're going to make money.
yeah, well said. um, yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of times there's just the vanity stuff. People just focus on the wrong things, and then I think having that understanding what success looks like, you can start walking back and saying, what do I got to do to build that?
What
I
did
don't
it
think
look
too
like
many
to you
people
in the
do that.
beginning?
In the beginning,
Yeah.
oh man, when I was, graduated college and stuff, it was all about like passive income, right? You just wanted to see passive income. We're going to build,
Right.
you know, I mean, I remember doing all sorts of stuff. You could, at that point it was like, okay, I'm going to pay for so many Google ads. I'm going to fire up a site of some service offering or some product. I'm going to feed it with cheap advertising, and we're going to get a margin, right? And half of those things backfire, right? But yeah, there was always like this. You're always, I mean, at least everything I was reading and consuming was all these like growth hacks or like shortcuts, right?
Right.
Easy button type opportunities. And it's like, that does not work. It might work for a moment. It's not
Hmm.
sustainable.
Not sustainable.
Not something that builds actual value over time. But that's what everyone was saying. And then you look at some of the you find some good mentors that actually built businesses that were worth something, and you realize that there was no growth hacking. There was no, like at Spark, I mean, we've grown over, 90 some percent of our new clients are all referrals. Like, there's no growth hacking that. You have to land a client,
Do
you
great
have to
work.
do really good work, and then you have to wait for them to talk to somebody. There's no growth hacking that. So that's kind of it.
What else have you guys been doing to grow though? Anything else, like any other efforts, leading indicators you've been focusing on to move the needle for your software company?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to pick out some really good industries to kind of share. What we've seen is, we're helping a lot in construction and manufacturing, some healthcare, but what we've noticed is that sharing the story has really helped, and finding some industries to become thought leaders in has helped. Construction's been great to kind of share some of that, and what's been known as kind of a lagging industry, and there's really no one owning that space, at least in our regions, our geographic regions. So that seems to definitely be helping. But social media, really just sharing. I mean, it's most software, most developers or software companies are typically like, yeah, man, mostly introverted, right? I mean,
Very, yeah.
right. And so, how do so we have this thing when we hire individuals, we have like my HR team's gonna get mad because I don't know the exact name, but it's kind of like the first 30 days of Spark. When you become, a team
Customer
member.
or employee journey.
Yeah, it's kind of like an employee journey, and in there has like part of it has like 21-day LinkedIn challenge. And so every day you got to do something else on LinkedIn, right? Update your background, update your photo, post something and join. And so, I know there's some people on our team that took them completely out of their comfort zone. But now you see them spreading the good news on LinkedIn and
I
social
love that.
media, because it's part of the organization now, and we share stuff. And so I think we're pretty outspoken, software firm, trying to get out there and spread the love and share great stories. And that probably helps, because every time I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh yeah, we've seen your stuff."
That's
Like,
hey, that's
good. Yeah.
the goal, right?
Right.
Coming in cold to any sort of conversation like that is always difficult. So I'm curious on the proposal side of things. When you guys are bidding jobs, I'm sure this process has evolved as it has for our podcast agency at Grindstone. And I'm just curious, when you guys are bidding projects out, what are some of the things you're keeping in mind, like when you're putting these massive quotes together for, say, like a 10, 20, $30 million company that needs new software?
So that's a great question. Because I have made so many mistakes funding my own software initiatives that have failed drastically, I now make sure every single customer spends their money the way I would spend mine. So, you know, we don't let any of them start building anything without putting together, we call it a discovery phase,
Yep.
basically an assessment phase of like, let's put together some high level specifications and some screens, and let's show it to your customer. Or
Mm.
in most cases, in these privately held businesses, it's their users, right? So one of our brand promises is that we guarantee adoption. So when we go into a company, we can say we're going to guarantee your users are going to use this, your employees are going to use this tool, and because we get them involved in the process, right?
Love
So
it.
my first startup, I built a social media, a social network for neighborhoods. All right, now they're all out there now, right? But this was 2007.
Oh, wow. You
I
were
didn't
super early.
Super early, right? And I didn't even own a house. Okay. I rent an apartment. What am I doing? Right. Building a social media platform
Next
for
door,
neighborhoods,
right?
right? It's next door, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know the customer. I raised money. I spent 12 months, and then I launched. I didn't show that thing to any users until it launched. It was a huge failure, right? So now what we do is and I've had successes. So we've built, I'd have an iPad app that I partnered with one of my great friends with. And the first thing we did was we put together a clickable prototype. We sent it to teachers. All of a sudden we got back 20, 30 people said, "I'll buy this right now." Built that
Wow.
thing in 30 days, launched it. Things made money for 8 years straight, no overhead. And we did it in 30 days versus I spent 10 times as much in a year. And
Wow.
not, so we try to make sure our clients get the end user involved. Don't overinvest. Make sure they understand what you're building, understand the ROI, and then break that project into small milestones. And so we don't waste their money. Like I've wasted mine time and time again. So
That's so good.
it's
Do you lead
taking
with
that.
that? Do you lead with that as a pitch to them and say, "Hey, I've spent my own money doing this wrong"? Like, how do they respond to that?
Yeah, I'm typically not involved in a lot of the sales anymore, but one of our sales guys, our VP is out this week. So I got to take a couple calls, and I got to deliver a proposal actually this morning. And it was a 6-figure proposal. This project's, back of the napkin, it's going to be $500,000. And I said, the first section of it is literally, it's like 2 weeks of our team to go in there and just define the scope.
Wow.
And I said, I will not let you guys spend any of this money until you do that. And then we re-estimate it. And like, we will not go forward unless you do that. And we will not do the project unless you do that. Cause there's a lot of firms that'll come and they're in like desperate need. And they're like, can you guys start next week?
Yeah.
No, we will not do a project because it's not going to get adopted. You just build what you think you need and then shove it on the user. We're not going to be involved in
Or
that.
worse, the CEO and visionary is pushing that down, doesn't show it to anybody in the team, just works with the software person alone. And
Right.
you've got a 0 adoption rate there.
Insane. Yeah. So yeah, we will not do that. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it all, some of those lessons were learned. And I think that's the one thing, these companies they're going to, if they don't have the right firm, they're going to make the same mistake I did. And nowadays, I mean, you can't swing and miss at their scale.
No, the money is too important. And, yeah, that's a really interesting way of going about it. So, which helps a ton, I'm sure, when you're selling, because it's effectively you're pulling away and you're saying like, you need this way more than we need this. In fact, we want to make sure you don't want it before we want to make sure that you want it, right? Or we want to make sure that you're absolutely saying yes instead of just like kind of maybe,
Right. Oh yeah, like our qualification will be, how many off the shelf tools have you tried to adopt and failed? Oh, I haven't really tried. Okay, well, come back after you do that, because that's your best bet. If you can't, you got to try using something off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be faster. You're going to get up and running quicker. If you haven't failed multiple times on off the shelf, then you don't need custom.
That's so good. That's so good, because when you're building, your customer base becomes insanely loyal to you, and you're really curating like some of the best customers ever because of the process that you're putting in place with people early.
Well, that's the other thing. When you start a service business, you get so emotionally tied into making deals. Like you need to secure work, right? Where over time you start to realize like all those bad deals you made were because you cared too much about the deal versus the fit. And is this the right customer? Do they share our values? You're going to be seeing these people more than your family on some days, probably, right? You better,
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is super important. I think early on in any business, you kind of can forget about some of that because you're so focused on, the short term. And, so yeah, I think I find myself, talking people out of it during qualification calls.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like someone coming to you saying they want an amazing podcast, but they didn't want to do some of the things that you're like, oh no, you need good equipment. You need, a purpose, and you need all this, you got to push back.
100%. If the interest isn't there for that show and the person isn't ready to commit to it, like one of the biggest things I ask people is time. I say, this is usually how I lead it up. So you just woke up, you started off the morning fighting with your wife, worst fight you've ever had. Your kid got in trouble in school. So now you're going to have a bad day. You're probably going to have a pretty rough night based upon the communication with your wife, stuff that you got to deal with your kid. say maybe you lost a family member to add insult to injury, and you have your top person at your company quit. And so I introduce all those negative situations and negative scenarios that could, and they're like, they're starting to feel that like, oh man, that would be really bad. All those things would be bad. And I say, with that in mind, and say that was happening once every other week, how many podcasts could you commit to recording every single month? Because people like to assume what they can get accomplished on their best day instead of assuming what they could accomplish on their very worst day.
Yeah, man, I haven't heard that approach to kind of visualizing that, but that's solid. I like it.
It helps them understand what their minimum viable commitment can be. And then from that point forward, just like you, we're not saying you need 8 podcasts a month or your podcast is going to suck. Like, no. If you do 8 podcasts a month and you're not even used to doing one and you're stressed out and it's adding all this load. Yeah. It's adding all this load. And oh, by the way, there goes 8 hours of your 160 that you planned on working. Well, 8 plus, probably 16 hours that you planned on working. That's gone now. So how do you operate if you lose 16 hours of work, capability in a month? Well, not very well. Okay. So let's back that down to 4 hours a month. How does that sound? Right. Okay. Wow. That's way more manageable. I could do 2 episodes a month. Anybody can. And that's usually where we start people.
Yeah. So setting the expectations. I mean, where we've gotten in trouble early on, it was just not setting the right expectations early on with clients.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've cut to the chase pretty quick. So
we've had similar situations. And I think a lot of people, that happens in the video production business as well. So people get really excited about a video concept and they're like, oh, we need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. And then, we used to be really afraid of giving ranges because we wanted to basically say, well, we need to sell them in the proposal and we don't want to, not show the full value of the proposal and give them a price. But in reality, if they can't even quantify the idea that they could be spending $30,000 to $50,000 on a video campaign or a marketing campaign, and they're like thinking 10,000 and they have a $50,000 budget, like in their mind, they have 50K worth of work, but 10K on paper to them, they're never going to buy from you anyway, because you're going to seem way too expensive.
Yep. Yeah. And flushing that out early is always interesting, right?
How do you guys do that?
Man, I mean, so I used an approach today that I think I'm going to train the rest of my sales team on, which was triangulating the ballpark, because everybody wants a ballpark, right? And it's just like, it'd be like going to a builder and saying, I want a 3-bedroom house. How much? What's the ballpark? I won't hold you to it. It's like, well,
yes, you will.
Where is it? Where is it located? What are the fixtures, the furniture? I mean, all of that, right?
30,000 to
right. Oh,
5 million.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And we won't hold it to you. We won't hold it to you. So what the approach that I used today, which the client really liked, and I think it was good, is I did the back of the napkin from the requirements they gave us. And I flushed them out some questions. And so I kind of gave them the back of the napkin using kind of broad brush strokes. And it came, in this case, it came to about $500,000. And I then said, let me show you. And I went into our accounting system and I pulled the last 18 months of revenue by client by month. And I found the 4 or 5 projects that were very similar to scope and functionality. And I showed them. It had a mobile app, it had a web interface, it had an admin interface, it had to connect to some APIs, and it had to have a credit card payment gateway, right? So there's like these 5 things. So I found there was 5 or 6 clients with those same functionalities. And I then showed them their spend. I showed the report. And I showed their names because they were all names. They're all clients that are public referrals of us, and they've done case studies. And
cool.
So I showed them their systems, and I showed them, here's what they spent. And the average was, $400,000 to $600,000 over the course of, 18 months or so for them to get this thing. And they thought that was great. They're like, it's awesome. Then I said, hey, here's what it would take for you to build this in-house. Here's a designer. Here's the average salary. Here's a front end and back end, a full stack developer. Here's a mobile app developer, and here's a PM. And let's assume the PM is also doing QA work. Now I'm getting kind of technical, but hey,
You're
here's what it
doing
would
more
be
than
for you
just
to,
your project.
right? And it was about to do it internally was about $500,000. And so we triangulated this ballpark by here's what we think, and here's how we came up with it. Here's what other clients have spent, and here's what it would take for a team of your own to build it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they loved it. They're like, they're going into a board meeting and,
I love that.
they feel prepared to say, if that board asks them, what it would take us to build it in house, they're going to say pretty much the same, but we're going to lay everybody off in a year. Or,
Yeah.
what did other people spend, and what's the monthly spend? And so,
dude, that's
it was more
really
of an educational process versus like because I showed them every hour, hey, here's what and we broke it down by every type of resource, by module, what we think, threw a pretty hefty contingency in there, and just explained it like transparent, versus just a one pager with a big number.
Yeah, that's super good. I love that you were able to show them the cost of doing it themselves, and also introduce them to the pain of, okay, say you really build a relationship with these 5 people and they're awesome, and you actually, by some stroke of luck, don't hate the people that you end up hiring for your first ever dev project that you don't understand how to manage. Let's just say you just struck gold with who you hired, right? And there's no internal turmoil. They don't have egos, anything along those lines, right?
Of course.
Even if you love them, you're going to lay them off in a year. And that's exactly what you're not going to have to share with them, but you're going to have to internalize that understanding. How's that sound? Like, no. Horrible. Sounds awful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's just the same thing that, when I consume services from other companies, I kind of think about the ones that I value. It's just like, how do they treat me? It's like when you get that blank invoice that just says one liner, it's like, versus, hey, here's what everything costs. It's what I told you it was going to take. And I think just transparency is key. And, who knows?
What kind of books have you consumed over the years that are so good that you've read them over and over and over again?
The Obstacle is the Way.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Solid.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I buy that in bulk and I hand that thing out.
Dude, fun interview for you to watch. I just listened to an interview on with Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Garrett Gunderson. Do you know who that is?
No.
So he's really big on YouTube in the finance world, and hopefully he'll come on the show here soon, but really good at financial education. He wrote the book Killing Sacred Cows, and he actually interviews Robert Kiyosaki on his YouTube channel, and it is fire. Like you'll really enjoy it. I've listened to it a couple times. So, okay. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Obstacle is the Way. What other things?
Time Warrior is another one.
Time Warrior.
Oh yeah. I had a supervisor give that to me when I had one of my first big management jobs, and Steve Chandler is the author. Awesome book. I buy that in bulk and hand it out when I see first-time managers in my company kind of stressing, or I give them that book, and it's like, wow, it's solid. 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, solid. Yeah, Seth Godin stuff's always good. The one that I've read multiple times, High Output Management. I'm not sure if you've read that.
No.
The founder of Intel.
Yeah. He worked with
Andrew
John
Grove.
Doerr. Yeah, Grove.
Yeah,
he worked
Andrew
with John
Grove.
Doerr.
Oh man, High Output Management. You can get that on YouTube. I send that to my leadership team. Oh, just awesome. Just servant leadership 101 is a great one. Scaling Up. I don't know if you've read Scaling Up.
I haven't yet.
So it's based on the Rockefeller habits. So, a lot of, you got EOS, or you have kind of the Rockefeller habits.
Vern Harnish.
Um, yep. So scaling up is solid. I wish I would have read that sooner, because you get kind of focused on the wrong numbers, right? You get focused on revenue and things of that nature, not necessarily after-tax cash flow, and some of the other stuff might be a little more important.
Yeah, no kidding. Every
So yeah,
entrepreneur has
so I
been
mean,
there.
yeah, so those kind of books, I guess, stuff my wife wouldn't you want to like open the cover on, that kind of stuff.
I got it. That's good. That's good, man. I love really one of my favorite books is E-Myth.
Oh
Showing,
yeah, oh yeah,
E-Myth just hit so hard for me when I was getting started in business and realizing that, like, hey, if you want to like truly build something, like you're not going to be able the one to do, you're going to limit yourself at this certain point. And that one was super pivotal for me.
yeah.
$100 million offers by Alex Hormozy. Have you read that?
I have not.
I would highly, highly, highly recommend you read that. Wow. Just like a
Nice.
pure gold book. I've read it 5 times probably. Just in the last few years. So, or last year, I think. It's just a very short, easily consumable, but like thick, in terms of knowledge, very, very dense.
Yeah. Nice.
Material.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah. And he's got
Yeah.
a course. He's got a course online that's actually free that goes with it. Really, really cool, dude. So, really like that one. Yeah, dude. What other things did we not cover in the podcast today that you want to cover? Anything that you wish I would have asked you? Something like that?
Man, I think, just the, what I'm passionate about, and I talk to a lot of startups and younger founders and stuff about expectation setting, and not letting kind of the one thing I want to get across to younger entrepreneurs is to find success for themselves. Don't fall into the pressures of society and what, just because you see one firm got some crazy multiple, that is the exception to the nth degree. That there are so many successful entrepreneurs that you've never heard of that have just created great stuff that they're proud of, and you've never heard of it. And just focusing on that. If I would have done that earlier on, I wouldn't have built the social network for neighborhoods when I didn't have a house. I would have, not try to do the growth hack, try to build something that you're proud of. And, obviously everyone's got the right path, and mine all makes sense now that I look back. But I think that's the biggest thing. I'm fearful that too many people are trying to find that easy button versus, like you said, reading the books, understanding the fundamentals, learning on their own. That's the one thing I'd love to get across. So
It's super good. That's awesome, man. How can people find you online if they want to get in touch with you and get to potentially work with Spark Business?
yeah, so sparkbusinessworks.com would be our website. You can find me on LinkedIn, /Bob Armbrister, ARMBRISTER. And try to reach out to me, and would love to help any company that wants to get some advice on how not to waste money or make mistakes in software. And we'd love to help them.
It's awesome, man. Very good. Well, guys, this is going to wrap it up for another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes. As usual, I'd love if you guys could leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes and a review. You can review and rate the show more than once. So if you've already done it, feel free to go back and do it again, only if it's 5 stars, of course, so we can get more cool people like Bob on the show. And take a screenshot of this and post it to your Instagram story and tag me if you guys are listening. You can find me on Instagram at Life of Landon. And if you guys need any work done, or you're thinking about starting a podcast, you're thinking about getting some video work done, reach out to us at grindstoneagency.com, and we'd love to talk with you. And we help take people from 0 to 100 when it comes to podcasting. So no podcast experience all the way to launching over 52 shows a year, we'll help you out with that, and excited to talk to you guys. And thanks again, Bob, for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Take care.